Before we continue, I just want to take this opportunity to remind the honourable members, as we get into something new, the members who are joining us from home. In the House, you have to stand up to be recognized, which has been done for years. From home, please turn on your cameras well in advance. Don't wait till the last second. That is just your way of standing up remotely. It just makes it easier to deal with any technological problem that we may incur as we go on. Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable member for Portage-Lisker.
Mr. Speaker, the second wave of the pandemic is here, and most Canadians who may come up in a contact tracing list can't afford to take 2 or 3 weeks off to get tested for COVID. Right. Last March, the Prime Minister promised that rapid COVID testing for Canadians would be a top priority. Half a year and $500 billion later, Canadian families still have to wait in line for hours and sometimes days to get tested. Why is the Prime Minister failing Canadians on this vital test during the pandemic?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way we've been working with the provinces and territories on increasing testing across the country. We provided $19 billion through the Safe Restart Agreement to increase testing capacity, amongst other things. We procured supplies and provided resources to help the provinces with testing, contact tracing, and data. I've held 18 meetings with the First Ministers over the course of the pandemic. We'll continue to do what it takes to keep Canadians safe, ensure our scientists have all the tools necessary to rapidly approve the tests that are safe for Canadians.
The honourable member for Portage-Lisker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister locked the doors of Parliament to cover up his WE scandal under the guise of a speech from the throne which would address the pandemic. But the throne speech was nothing but a litany of recycled Liberal broken promises that leaves countless numbers of people behind. This Prime Minister has no plan to deal with the health crisis, no plan to deal with job losses, and no plan to address divisions in our country. So why did the Prime Minister waste all of this time just to cover up his scandal instead of using it to help Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the pandemic is the most serious public health crisis Canada has ever faced. The last 6 months have revealed fundamental gaps in our society and in countries around the world. For those who are already struggling, the pandemic has been even more difficult, so we must address the challenges of today and support vulnerable people for the future. We will take bold action on health, on the economy, on equality, and on the environment. Those are the things that Canadians expect while we continue to have their backs through this pandemic and chart a better course for a brighter future for all Canadians.
Honourable member for Portage-Lisker.
But the Prime Minister's throne speech was nothing more than an attempt to change the channel on his corrupt government's actions. Right. The speech was almost 7,000 words long, but mentioned Canada's natural resources only once. There was no mention of unionized oil and gas workers in Alberta, no plan for forestry workers in Quebec and BC, and farmers, well, all they can expect is more carbon tax. Yep. So why did the Prime Minister knowingly leave millions of Canadians behind?
Why?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we've been there for Canadians right across the country. Almost 9 million people received the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and with the measures we're putting forward today, we're actually going to continue to be able to support the millions who continue to be out of work, looking for work, but unable to find it because our economy is still in recovery. We've also stepped up in supporting small businesses with extending the Canada Emergency Business Account and extending the wage subsidy. These are the things that are going to get our economy going by supporting Canadians through this pandemic.
The honourable for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the throne speech was a typically Liberal speech. They're just creating disputes with provinces. And the speech wasn't even over when the Premier of Quebec already said that he was disappointed in the speech because the Liberal government once again has interfered in provincial jurisdiction, notably in health. And this is unacceptable. But this is the Liberal signature. How come the Liberal government of the Prime Minister is not respecting provincial jurisdiction and let the provinces take care of health and he take care of Canadians' concerns? I regret, Mr. Speaker, to hear the member saying that the federal government doesn't have its place in protecting seniors. The Premier didn't mind sending us to send in the military to help seniors in long-term care. And we're always going to be there to support our seniors. We're going to work in partnership with the provinces, all provinces, to ensure the health and safety of all Canadians. And in this particular case, we're going to take care of our seniors. The member for Louis Saint Laurent. If need be, Quebecers and Canadians are looking at the arrogance of this Liberal Prime Minister. He said that if there are needs, well, I know the needs of people in my riding. They're really happy to serve Canadians. But once again, the Prime Minister has shown his spite for Quebecers, and he's not respecting provincial jurisdiction. When will he understand that Canada needs work with the provinces and not against the provinces? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have always recognized and will always recognize provincial jurisdiction, and we're also recognized that we have to work together during a pandemic that is unprecedented. This crisis means that all levels of government have to work together to protect Canadians, to restart the economy. We can't play petty politics like the members across the way. We're going to work with the premiers and with Canadians to deliver on measures that will help everyone. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. After a second wave of COVID-19, the Quebec Premier and his counterparts came to Ottawa last week with a simple message: help us. They asked for funding to fight the COVID-19 virus. And this is why the speech from the throne is an insult for them. No one word about health transfers. No money. Just lectures and interference, Mr. Speaker. In the midst of a pandemic, will the Prime Minister increase health transfers? Or will he be creating other disputes with Quebec? I was very happy to work with all members on this House during this pandemic, and I'm sorry that there's some members who forgot what we did just a few months ago. We increased health transfers. We're already talking about $40 billion a year, and $2 billion was given at the beginning of this pandemic, and once again, we're talking about $19 billion that we're sending to the provinces to ensure a safe restart. And I also committed directly with the Premier and other. Yes, I said we're going to talk about health transfers to ensure that Canada can properly serve its citizens. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Deputy PM explained that her government is refusing to increase health transfers in the throne speech because the government must justify the reasons for its spending to Canadians. The reason for this spending, Mr. Speaker, is it COVID-19? This is the worst pandemic of our century. We're talking about 5,800 deaths in Quebec. Does the government realize that we're in the midst of a second wave and increase health transfers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we increased health transfers by $500 million right from the onset of this pandemic, and throughout. We also sent $19 billion to provinces for a safe restart. We've sent $2 billion directly to help children to go back to school, and we're going to continue to be there to work with the provinces to help Canadians to stay healthy and to restart our economy, whether it's with CERB that will now be transferred to the EI. We're going to continue to be there for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Burnaby Sud. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. People are worried. Numbers are rising, and we are clearly facing a second wave of COVID-19. But at the same time, the Prime Minister didn't really give us a plan. What is the plan for more COVID testing? What's the plan for our seniors in long-term care homes? What is the plan to make sure that it's not everyday Canadians that are paying the cost of this recovery, but companies that made big profits during this company that pay the price? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'm very happy to highlight how we do have an approach that will first and foremost recognize that we are in the midst of a pandemic still and that it's ongoing and people still need help. And that is why we're going to continue to work with the provinces to accelerate the testing process and to make sure that everyone has access to testing. We're going to be there to help our seniors because we've always committed to do so. We're going to help our young people. We're going to help families with the ongoing support for families through EI. And we're going to support our small companies with measures to spur the economic recovery. We're going to continue to be there for them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We are in the midst of a second wave. There are numbers increasing and people are deeply worried. But the Prime Minister still hasn't laid out clear plans for some of the most concerning parts of this pandemic. What is the plan to make sure people have access to testing? What's the plan to make sure our seniors are no longer bearing the brunt of COVID-19? What's the plan to make sure families who need childcare can get access to it? And what's the plan to make sure, when we get past the second wave, that it isn't everyday families struggling to get by that pay the price, but those who have profited off this pandemic who pay the price for the recovery?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the throne speech delivered by the Governor-General yesterday lays out our approach in all those elements. We're going to be supporting, moving forward, continuing to build on what we've done for childcare, continuing what we're doing on supporting families across the country, making sure that while we're dealing with this health crisis, we are there to continue to have Canadians' backs. The plan we laid out is a bold one that touches on the economy, the environment, health and safety, and the questions of fairness and the barriers facing too many Canadians still. We will continue to work together to deliver for Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this year, Tokyo Airport started using rapid COVID-19 tests. And these are different tests than the Prime Minister outlined this morning that take hours to get and days to receive the results. They're different. So when the Health Minister found out that this technology was available, why didn't she pull her officials into the office and say, when is this review going to be done? When is this going to be available to Canadians? So the question, very bluntly, is this. On what day will the COVID-19 rapid test reviews be complete?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And throughout this pandemic, what we have done is rely on the expertise of the researchers, the scientists, and the experts to guide us in the measures that we're taking to respond to COVID-19. We'll continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, because we know that, in fact, science and research is the key to unlock the next set of tools that Canadians and, in fact, all global citizens are waiting for. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, I believe the information the Minister has relied upon to date is that COVID-19 is not transmitted to person. Masks don't work. Border controls are quasi-racist. That's the information she's relying upon. So forgive us if we don't believe her. Why is she apologizing for Chinese numbers on COVID-19 transition? Why is she trusting Chinese numbers more than reviews from tests that Japan has approved?
The Honourable Minister. Seem to have had a technical difficulty. I want to make sure everybody's got their mute on, and we'll ask the Minister of Health to start her answer. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as the member opposite may realize, science evolves. And in fact, when COVID-19 first arrived on the global stage, not a lot was known about the virus. And every step of the way, we've worked with researchers, scientists, and the excellent public health officers across the country to ensure that our response meets the new understandings as they evolve. Mr. Speaker, this is a dynamic situation. Of course, our advice will change as the science changes around the coronavirus. I'm proud of the medical community and the hardworking research community.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
But it's been half a year and other developed countries have got it done. And Mr. Speaker, apparently elite billionaires on private jets get special treatment when they fly into Canada. When Canadians found that out last week, the Public Safety Minister actually claimed he didn't know about it. So let's get this straight. In the middle of a pandemic that has locked down our country and almost shut down our economy, the Liberals don't know who or how many are receiving exemptions from the 14-day mandatory quarantine at the border.
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to take the opportunity to point out that the reporting on this incident was false, and unfortunately, the member opposite may not have heard that there were no national interest exemptions issued in this case. The decision was made by a Border Service officer based on the information that he was provided at the time of entry for those two individuals. And the information that was provided, unfortunately, was not sufficient to allow entry. We've acknowledged that the border officer in that case made a mistake, and those people should not have been admitted. And I've spoken to the head of CPSA, and it won't happen again.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
For more than 6 months ago, Conservatives said the Liberals should shut down the border to block the virus and save Canadian lives. But now the minister is actually admitting that after they dithered and delayed and did it anyway, now they actually don't have control, or he's pretending they don't. And the Liberals gave a pass to hundreds of rich, connected travelers, but the minister personally rejected the fiancé of a Canadian who's sick with cancer. Quite the double standard. Meanwhile, everyday Canadians, businesses and families still face uncertainty at the border. So how many more elite billionaires are getting special treatment?
The minister.
I'll point out again that no elite billionaires were given special treatment, and they will not receive special treatment. The rules that have been put in place to maintain the integrity of our borders and the safety of Canadians are clear and enforced by our Border Service officers. We also have a process in place to deal with those cases of compassion so that it can be determined whether or not they are necessary for entry, and that it can be done safely. We'll work with our public health authorities and with the provincial public health authorities. Mr. Speaker, our first priority will always be the protection, health and safety of Canadians.
The honourable for Charlebourg au Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that we'd have a transparent government, but now we've seen that he would not fulfill this promise. The proof: the media released news that there was a flagrant conflict of interest in terms of COVID-19. When will the Prime Minister make this information public? He knew this, but he was hiding it from Canadians. Why? The Honourable Minister.
Pour la question.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. I would like some clarification about the question. I'm not sure what the member is referring to now. What is the issue? The Honourable for Charlebourg Saint-Charles. I have a second question, but I'll repeat it to be kind with the minister. The vaccine committee that was established by the government in August had an issue. There were people on the committee that had potential conflicts of interest that were dangerous, but people weren't aware of this. And CBC Radio Canada broke that news. And how come we had to hear this from the media? Why was this information hidden from Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question.
Value the work of top scientific and industry experts. We very much also focus on evidence-based, science-based decisions, and there is a robust conflict of interest process in place. There's also an online registry of declared interest with respects to the task force the member opposite is alluding to.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the PM says he's basing his decision on science. Well, all scientists have told us that chronic underfunding for decades has weakened our health system. We saw this in long-term care. You can't prepare for an unforeseen situation like COVID-19 when systematic federal cuts meant we haven't had the means to take care of our people. The federal government used to pay 50 cents for every dollar. Now it pays 22 cents. Rather than giving lessons, will the government finally increase health transfers? The Honourable Minister.
L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister said a bit earlier, there were health transfers for provinces right from the beginning. There was $500 million in other funds that followed after. And the Canadian government was there when the provinces needed our support, and we're going to continue to be so. This is teamwork across the country to fight COVID-19. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, our healthcare personnel hasn't recovered yet from the first wave of COVID, and now the second wave has begun. Our guardian angels, what they need is for the federal government to keep its word and transfer the necessary funds to Quebec for them to take care of their people. And what they read in the throne speech is that we're going to tell you how to do your job. When will the federal government get on the same page as everyone else and increase health transfers recurringly? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my Bloc colleague seems to be telling us that seniors, well, they're a question of jurisdiction. For us, seniors, it's a whole question of right to life, right to dignity, and the right to have the necessary medication and health care will always be there for our seniors. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Leader of the Government, well, they've been cutting health transfers for 25 years, and we weren't able to properly deal with the situation of our seniors in long-term care, and they have to be responsible for that situation. And now the Premier of Quebec said about the Prime Minister today that instead of talking about increasing health transfers to the provinces, he's telling us that he's going to interfere in long-term care, in family medicine, interfere in mental health, and tell us how to do things. Listen, this is somewhat insulting. End of quote. What is this government saying to the Premier of Quebec in response? The Honourable Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, for the Bloc, when we talk about seniors, it's a constitutional dispute, but we're talking about being human. The people who have suffered most during this pandemic are seniors. So every time when we rise on this side of the House, when we talk about seniors, we're going to talk about a right to life, right to dignity, right to medication, and right to quality health care.
For Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were told last year that they need to ban single-use plastics. We started packing our groceries in reusable bags and using our reusable cups for morning coffee runs. Then the pandemic hits and the government says stop. The Chemistry Industry Association said, we feel that now more than ever, we must ensure that new regulatory measures will continue to contribute to and not detract from Canada's much-needed economic recovery. How many workers making products that healthcare workers need will lose their jobs?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government has made a commitment to address the issue of plastic pollution. One part of that involves a ban on harmful single-use plastics, but the bulk of the strategy, actually working in tandem with provinces and territories across the country, involves additional recycling, simplification of product design, and a whole range of other measures. It's important for us to ensure that we are addressing the issue of plastic pollution. We will do so in a thoughtful way and are working very closely with the provinces and territories to do that.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, if this year showed us anything, is that we need single-use plastic products like masks, gloves, and other PPE. Yesterday, the Chemistry Industry Association said, instead of pursuing go-alone policies like the federal government's plan to ban certain plastic products, Canada should commit to a reimagination of recycling and repurposing of plastics and maximize their lifespan and value. Why is this government attacking an industry that makes products critical to our COVID-19 response instead of working with industry to make them sustainable?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable colleague, I would direct him to some of the information that's actually on the web. This is exactly what we are doing, is working to ensure that recycling happens, that it actually happens at a much elevated rate to what it normally is. We're working very actively with the governments of the provinces and territories across this country, including the governments in Western Canada, on this issue. And in fact, with respect to PPE, that was a direct issue that was on the agenda of Canadian Council of Environment Ministers that was chaired by the province of Saskatchewan. There is an initiative underway between the federal government, the provinces and territories to look at how we better either replace some of those products or to get them into the recycling stream. It is an important issue, and we are working hard.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we saw a throne speech heavy on rhetoric, light on details. A representative from Clean Energy Fuels said that the throne speech had a bunch of promises, but without any action as usual. With feedback like this, the government expects us to believe they will beat the 2030 targets they're not even close to being on pace to meeting. Now, they promised to plant 2 billion trees, and so far, how many have they planted? 0. Why should Canadians trust a government that makes such lofty statements but can't even plant a single tree?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the honourable member knows, a throne speech is a statement of intent and priorities, and what he would have found if he had read the third chapter in the throne speech is a commitment to immediately bring forward a plan which will allow Canadians visibility on how we will not only meet, but we will exceed the 2030 targets. I look forward to bringing that plan forward in the coming weeks and months.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
The Liberals created the housing crisis in 1993 by canceling the National Affordable Housing Program. And the crisis has only gotten worse with the pandemic. Van East has the largest homeless encampment in the country. Re-announcing the 3,000 housing units is not good enough when 235,000 Canadians face homelessness each year. The ongoing failure to have an Indigenous-led urban, rural, and northern housing strategy is shameful. The all talk, no action approach is not worth the paper it's written on without meaningful action. Will the Prime Minister adopt the Recovery for All 6-point plan to end the housing crisis?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate that the member opposite chooses to ignore the groundbreaking announcement that we made just prior to the throne speech, the Rapid Housing Initiative that will build 3,000 additional permanent and affordable housing units all across the country, targeting Canadians who are on the street and those who are at risk of being homeless, in addition to populations at risk such as women and children fleeing domestic violence. This, in addition to other aspects of the National Housing Strategy, bring us to close to $56 billion in.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, once again, the Liberals repeated their promise of national pharmacare. They claim they're paving the way to universal pharmacare for Canadians, but they refuse to commit to public delivery and fail to set out any timeline for action. Mr. Speaker, Liberals have been paving the way for decades. Canadians deserve something concrete. Will this government finally commit to public pharmacare and tell Canadians when they can get this overdue essential medical service?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the member opposite that no Canadian should have to choose between paying for prescriptions and putting food on the table. And that's why we've done more than any government in a generation to lower drug prices, including new rules on patented drugs, saving Canadians over $13 billion. But now it's time for the hard work to sit down with provinces and territories and commit to working all together to ensure that all Canadians can access affordable medication.
The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, a year ago at this time, I walked through the PEI National Park in the Cavendish area to witness the damage from post-tropical storm Dorian that happened on September 7th and 8th. And the damage was shocking. 14 feet of erosion along Cavendish Beach on the shoreline. And in Cavendish Campground, 80% of the trees destroyed and the campsites themselves annihilated. My question to the minister is, what is the government doing to rehabilitate that campground and the PEI National Park, and when are they going to get to it?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thanks very much for the question. Certainly issues associated with damage to national parks are an important priority for the government. We are working through the issues associated with this particular park and the damage that was caused, and we will certainly be coming back to the honourable member.
The honourable member for West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, it's now been a week that tensions have been high in the normally quiet Acadian community of Clare, where local fishers are concerned about a fishery taking place during a sensitive time for the lobster biomass. After many questions asked and discussions on this crisis with the Minister of Fisheries, why has she failed to take any action?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my number one priority right now with regards to the tensions in southwest Nova Scotia is to make sure that we're ensuring the safety of all of the people that are in the area. We know that the best path forward is through a constructive, respectful dialogue with First Nations as well as with industry members from Nova Scotia. I have been meeting with the chiefs from Nova Scotia as well as with industry representatives. We're continuing to have those dialogues, and we will make sure that we find the path forward to make sure the First Nations treaty rights are implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Fisheries is the only person that can bring this crisis to an end. She has known that the tensions have been high for many months. Does the minister realize that her failure and inaction has put the safety of all at risk? It's completely unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. How long will it take for her to act?
The honourable minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we do believe that the path forward is to make sure that we're having respectful and collaborative dialogue with the parties involved. My number one priority is making sure that people are safe, that we're lowering tensions. We have to work together towards a solution to the impasse. That's what we are doing now. This is a very long-standing and a deeply personal issue to many, many people. We're going to work with the First Nations as well as with industry to make sure that we find that path forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, disappointing, without content, without rigor, these are the reactions that greeted the throne speech. After the first wave of COVID-19, the Liberals seem not to have learned anything. The Quebec Chamber of Commerce has stated that we need more than a disconnected patchwork. People are concerned. Why are the Liberals allowing this virus to cause even more damage to the personal and economic health of all Canadians?
Honorable ministre.
Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, Canada is now facing a second wave of COVID-19. Our economic and health priorities are to fight the second wave. And that is the responsibility of all members in this House. I also want to underline that it is also the responsibility of each and every Canadian. We can succeed, but we must all pull together.
L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. The problem, Mr. Speaker, is that the Liberals' only plan seems to be to preach to Quebec by getting involved in areas of provincial jurisdiction and causing disputes. That doesn't help anyone. Yesterday, the throne speech and the Prime Minister's Liberal partisan speech showed a real lack of clear deadlines, ideas, and rigor. The Federation of Independent Business has stated that many of these initiatives may come too late for many small businesses. By proroguing Parliament, do the Liberals realize that they have imperiled the survival of many small Canadian businesses? The Honourable Minister. It almost sounds like my colleague stole a question from the Bloc Québécois, Mr. Speaker. For my colleague who is criticizing the throne speech, I would ask him, what would he cut from it? Help for seniors? CERB? Help for businesses? Help for people with disabilities? It's easy to criticize. It's easy to nitpick and say, no, nothing was okay. But what would he have cut from the throne speech? The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, let's discuss those who are most affected. COVID-19 has affected everyone, and specifically seniors. Not only are the majority of victims of COVID-19 seniors, but additionally, seniors are the ones who have been most isolated, separated from their near and dear, alone and anxious. And now they are the ones who have been most left out of the throne speech. Why does the Prime Minister want to create a two-tier system for seniors? Why is he abandoning seniors between 65 and 75? The Honourable Minister.
I really appreciate the opportunity to answer this question. We know that seniors are being affected more than many Canadians because they're staying home and they're staying safe. We know that social isolation among seniors is requiring much support from the government. We have provided direct financial support, and we have supported with additional funding through New Horizons for Seniors. This has been important resources on the ground that have helped seniors to get through during this challenging time. But you've raised a question. Why?
Le député de Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, we need to help seniors so they have more buying power in the long term. The government has spent nearly $400 billion since the beginning of the pandemic, and yesterday we were told that it is not the time for austerity. Well, the time may not be for austerity, according to the government, except when it comes time to help seniors more, to give a little back to those who work so hard to build Quebec and Canada. Can the government explain to seniors why it is still refusing to increase old age security from 65 by $110 a month?
I just want to remind, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind those in the House of what we have been doing to support seniors over the last many months. We have provided direct financial support to those seniors 65 and above that are on OAS of $300, an additional $200 for those on guaranteed income supplement. We have also provided a GST credit that provided those most vulnerable seniors, and if you look at a seniors couple, $1,500 of direct tax-free support to help them during this pandemic. We've additionally...
The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, the agriculture industry has been through a lot, even before the pandemic. The pandemic has made existing problems worse and added new ones. Whether it's competitiveness, market access, processing capacity, or reduced production, farmers have needed an action plan for some time. Yesterday, we got the same platitudes and vague promises that we've seen for years from this Liberal government. When will this government finally back up their promises with meaningful actions?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank our farmers because they've been working extremely hard, the farmers, the ranchers, and the food workers as well. And this is because of their hard work that we were able to have good food on our plates during the crisis. And we're there for them, and we will continue to be there for them. We have put significant additional money to support them. I'm just thinking about the $77.5 million for our processors. The $50 million that we've put, it was for to give $1,500.
Honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, farmers take pride in being stewards of their land, ensuring it's sustainable for generations to come while lowering carbon emissions. While their campaign speech yesterday recognized these efforts, the Liberals' words still don't match their actions. To date, grain farmers have two options for drying their grain: natural gas or propane. There are no alternatives. Mr. Speaker, will this government recognize that fact and exempt the on-farm use of fuels from the punitive carbon tax?
Yes. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague is right when she says that the farmers are good stewards of their land. They care for their land, they care for our environment, and we do appreciate it. And in the speech of from the throne yesterday, we have recognized that they will be strong partners in the relaunch of the economy and also to fight climate change. Putting a price on pollution is one important tool to fight climate change.
For Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's Liberal throne speech simply repeated the failed promises they've already failed to keep, especially when it comes to rural broadband. In April, the Liberal government admitted that the Connect to Innovate program had already failed to distribute much-needed funds for rural broadband to rural communities. Once again, we keep hearing the same buzzwords, but with no plan and no action taking place. Families, small businesses, and farmers in rural Ontario, and remote villages in Newfoundland and Labrador, and Indigenous communities across Canada are waiting to connect, and they're struggling because of this failure to connect. Mr. Speaker, when will Canadians see real action to get their internet up to speed?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I congratulate my colleague in his new role and look forward to working with him. Since we formed government, we've invested to connect 1 million households to high-speed internet, but that work is far from over. Colleagues heard in the throne speech yesterday our plans to accelerate and add ambitions to our plans. And Mr. Speaker, I'm counting on my colleagues' support to ensure that the throne speech and subsequent measures are supported so that we can connect every Canadian to high-speed internet.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A key focus for our government as we restart our economy is facilitating Canadians getting back to work in a way that keeps them safe and healthy while sustainably growing the economy. One way is by taking measures to close the gender gap between men and women in the workforce, which will boost economic growth, productivity, and prosperity for the whole country. Can the Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development tell this House how our government will be helping women across Canada to fully engage in the workforce and to reach their economic potential?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as my honourable colleague from Davenport well knows, women have been on the front lines of the fight against COVID. They have also been sidelines, and our economic recovery depends on women entering and re-entering the workforce. Yesterday's throne speech ensured that Canadians know that we will not lose the hard-won gains of the past decades, that we will work to ensure that there's an economic recovery with plan to get women back into the workforce, that we will ensure women's health and safety so that they can care for children, care for our elders, and ensure that Canada's full potential is realized.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, over the last 5 months, COVID-19 has had to share headlines with almost daily shootings across the GTA. Criminals don't care about COVID-19, and they certainly won't follow any new gun bans the Liberals pass. Organized crime and guns smuggled across the border go hand in hand. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the government finally realize that the solution is not going after law-abiding gun owners in small towns, but smuggled guns and organized crime?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a very important question. Our government is absolutely committed to strengthening gun control measures as part of a larger response to the gun violence and violence generally that's impacting our communities right across this country. Mr. Speaker, we have worked very closely with communities, with our provinces and territories, and with the police to take measures that we know will be effective. We'll be bringing forward legislation to strengthen our efforts at the border, to prevent the theft and diversion of guns into the hands of criminals, and also to take steps to ensure that those who are currently in possession of firearms, if they represent a danger to others, that those firearms are removed.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's trade agreement with the EU, CETA, will no longer apply to the UK as of December 31st. Canadian businesses from multiple sectors across the country are very concerned that we do not have a new agreement signed. The Deputy Prime Minister in February stated that the government would inform the House of any negotiations that they enter into with intent within 90 days of those negotiations starting. This means that technically we wouldn't be entering into negotiations till December when this agreement ends. When are the Liberals going to enter into negotiations with the UK?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for that really good question. I remain in close communication with my contact in the UK Trade Secretary, really pleased that we will continue to work with the UK to build on our strong trade agreement. We're going to continue working on a solid path for both of our countries to grow our economies, benefit our people, on a transition agreement that will ensure continuity for businesses here in Canada and for workers and businesses in the United Kingdom. We're going to keep working hard for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, almost to the day, a dear friend died of a drug overdose. Kamloops has seen more people die of illegal drug overdoses in the first half of 2020 than in all of 2019. In the throne speech, all the government did was acknowledge there's an opioid epidemic, no hint of a plan. One sentence when more than 1,000 people in BC have died. Heartbroken families, fentanyl being smuggled unchecked, and no plan from the Liberals. How does the government justify such neglect?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the member opposite might realize, in fact, this government has done more than any previous government to meet substance users where they're at by making sure that there's easier access to medications like Suboxone and Methadone, working with provinces and territories to make sure that there are overdose prevention sites, supporting community-based projects through substance use and addictions programs for treatment, safer supply programs. Mr. Speaker, we are tirelessly working with provinces and communities to ensure that people who use substances have treatments that work for them.
L'honorable député de Saint-Laurent.
The honourable member for Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, Canadian manufacturers from coast to coast to coast have responded remarkably to COVID-19 by retooling their on-the-ground operations to help produce personal protective equipment that we need so badly. One example is the maker of yoga jeans in my riding, who is now producing hospital gowns for healthcare workers. Could the minister tell Canadians about the historic efforts in industrial mobilization supported by our government's Made in Canada initiative? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Saint-Laurent for her question, as well as her hard work. Thanks to our Made in Canada project, we are supporting Canadian businesses, including the business mentioned by my colleague, so that our first-line workers have the equipment they need to take care of Canadians. Together, we will continue to make progress to better protect Canadians' health and safety.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, last week, as students went back to school in Victoria, teachers were told to open the windows to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. But they had to close the windows because of the smoke from the climate fires. This federal government has missed every single climate target that they set. And they're on track to even miss Stephen Harper's weak targets. Parents and young people are understandably worried. They want real climate action. When will this government deliver more than empty words and broken promises to address the climate crisis?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the wildfires in the United States and the attendant smoke that existed in British Columbia are a sign of things to come if we do not aggressively address the climate issue. This government developed the Pan-Canadian Framework, which identified over 225 megatons of reductions during first term in office. It is the first real climate plan this country has ever had. In the throne speech yesterday, we reiterated our commitment to bringing forward an enhanced climate plan that will provide transparency about how this government will not only meet but exceed our 2030 targets, and we intend to do that in the very near term.
The Honourable Member for Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to raise an urgent question. A number of years ago in the Cohen Commission, it was set for September 30th, 2020, it seemed a long time in the future, for the Minister of Fisheries to act to protect the wild BC salmon from the terrible impacts of what are sometimes called fish farms, but which are more accurately described as toxic fish factories. September 30th, the deadline looms. At the same time, Pacific salmon is in a desperate state of crisis throughout all its ecosystems. But will the minister commit to act to shut down the open pen toxic fish factories September 30th?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my department is absolutely committed to the conservation and protection of the wild Pacific salmon. That's why my department's policy and decision-making potential, we look at the potential risk, and we heavily rely on sound peer-reviewed science in order to make our decisions. To date, the department has 8 of the 9 risk assessments completed. We know that there's still 1 more to be finished up, and I will have more to say on this in the coming days. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And that's all the time we have today for question period.